tonight on Bangalore's property market. 400 out of 500, that's Fortune 500 companies are based out of Bangalore. The income of Bangaloreans is estimated to be 70% higher than the national average. So clearly it's a market to be closely observed and to keep a tab on. Today we'll get you the reality of Bangalore's real estate market. What have been the price trends? What is the demand and supply situation looking like? Is Bangalore turning more a luxury market than an affordable market? And to speak about all of that, with me, Bangalore's top 5 developers who redefined the city's skyline. Let's welcome M.R. Jaishankar, Chairman and MD of Brigade Enterprises, Jeetu Virwani, Chairman and MD, Embassy Group, Irfan Razak, Chairman and MD of the Prestige Group, Mr. J.C. Sharma, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Shobha Developers, Ashish Puravankara, Joint Managing Director of Puravanka Projects. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I can only say that it's unbelievably good luck to have all 5 of you on the same platform. So I hope I hope we can have a really robust and a little bit of a fiery discussion with a lot of truths coming out. Let me start with a curious observation and a good one too. The most glamorous hoardings from the airport to UB City were all, or at least 2/3 from real estate companies. So the market seems to be looking very robust, but when I look at the data, first 6 months seem that there haven't been very many new launches, or at least there has been a dip in new launches. Mr. Jaishankar, would you agree with that?
I mean, it could be, you may be having the overall statistics, it could be for the entire Bangalore, it could from the available data it may be, but if you take developer specific, there are a number of developers who are here, assembled here. We have all got a fair amount of good launches and large launches in the first 6 months. And the market is pretty robust, as you said, and it's quite buoyant. And I think we hope and we are quite sure it is going to be continuing to be buoyant in the next 6 months also. But there is a reasonable amount of supply. At the same time, with the new government at the center, the market is expected to be very bullish.
Okay, what happened then? If you look at all India figures, Mr. Sharma, clearly there has been a dip in new launches. So if you're saying that some developers such as yours could buck the trend, was it just that the demand has been constant and regular, or do you think Bangalore also faced some trouble in the first 6 months of this year? Before the elections?
Before the elections and for the first 2 months in this financial year, we had experienced in all our locations that demand had remained subdued, but from June onwards we do find, especially in Bangalore, a kind of a revival of
so
the
June
demand.
is the turning point. Before June things were looking slow.
Yeah.
Ashish, would you agree with that?
I think it's a combination, so I'll answer in 2 parts. I think existing projects, yes, I'll agree. But having said that, I think the launches that we've had in the last 6 months, those launches have done exceptionally well. Maybe the buyers feel they're getting a good choice of apartments. The pricing in a launch, obviously, they have an advantage. But ongoing projects, yeah, I agree with Mr. Sharma.
So what changed, Mr. Razak? What really changed? I mean, you're saying that existing projects were more difficult to sell, but new launches were selling. Is it because the new launches came at a more rational price?
Now see, like in our company, we launched 2 very major developments. One was the Prestige Lakeside Habitat in Whitefield, and the other one in a different locality, that's Kanakpura Road, is the Prestige Falcon City, and that was all in the first 6 months of the calendar year, apart from the other smaller ones. And these have done extremely well. Now, if you ask me why does a ready product probably or under construction, which is 50% away, go slightly slower than the one that gets pre-launched or launched, it's only that when the customer has to enter, they enter in that property now. So the payment that they have
Outgo
to make,
is much higher.
outgo is much less. Because initially within a month of their booking they have to just top up to 20%, and then the balance has to be paid over a period of time. Whereas if a customer gets into a project that is 50, 60, 70% developed, they obviously have to pay a much larger number, so they may as well probably wait till the completion and pick it up as a ready product. So what really happens, which we have seen,
Right.
And I think my friends here will also agree is, you sell whatever you can at the launch per time, whether you decide as a strategy in your company, whether it's 50, 60, 70%, and you clear up that stock. And after that, the balance, the best thing to do is to hang on to and to sell it only at completion, because once the product is completed, there's no way that the product will not sell, because then the customer sees the full picture. And I believe Bangalore developers do the best job in terms of look, feel and finish. So the customer also has that choice.
I can't play the devil's advocate on that point because in NCR I'm bashed about the fact that I'm very, very favorable to Bangalore developers on especially the quality and customer service point. But it's
true.
I'm on your side on that point, but many other things that I still want an answer to. So if you're saying that all right, first 6 months weren't really slow or at least didn't bother the developers here, are we agreeing to that? I mean, that's a big statement to make. All India, there was a lot of distress in the real estate market.
Yeah, but the most important thing in Bangalore for years has been that they're mostly genuine buyers. You don't get people, I don't think any of us get people who want to buy a tower of a residential building from us and then try to resell it or buy a few floors. So they are mostly genuine buyers, and like Irfan correctly said, that people want to pay over the time because they're buying for their own use. They are, we Indians like to save a lot, so you buy an apartment for your daughter, you buy for your son, then you buy a second apartment for your daughter once you have a little more money. So people like to pay in installments and
It's
larger
mostly an
projects,
end-user
to
market.
give them. And also the crux is the large part of the market is this mid-segment. And
I was coming
which
to
is
that.
in Bangalore, rightfully, I don't know, I don't think that we have some sort of a cartel, but by default, we price our products much
I'm
better
glad
than
you said.
everybody else in the country.
Okay, so
It's not highly priced, or if the market moves up, the prices don't go up in Bangalore so fast as it goes up in lots of other parts of the country, and then it slows down. So I think that also plays an important role because it's
Fair
a stable
enough.
market.
So let's talk-
I think Bangalore developers are much more responsible. I like to put it that way. As far as the pricing is concerned.
As far as pricing is concerned, so let's focus a bit on pricing. It's not as if Bangalore now doesn't have the distinction of also becoming the new luxury capital of India, but we'll come to that a bit later. I'm curious to understand what your view is on RBI actually now characterizing under priority sector housing up to 65 lakhs in Bangalore city for loans up to 50 lakh rupees. Is that a big positive, Ashish? Especially because you're in that segment in a big way.
So we have Provident, which is in that space, the premium affordable space. I think it's a very big positive. While I think this sector has been doing well. So we launched Provident in March of 2009 and we've done exceptionally well. I think this move by RBI and in the recent budget will make it more affordable, put more money in the hands of the consumer, make loans in that space much more cheaper and encourage people to buy their homes. So I see the market growing further.
Will it encourage a developer like you to look more towards, I mean, there is a luxury portfolio right now which is very visible in the Brigade Enterprises portfolio. There is also premium homes, but now will you concentrate and look at the opportunity of budget homes? And I'm talking about everything 65 lakhs and below. So I'm saying 50 to 65 lakhs.
No, we already, as far as Brigade Group is concerned, we already have a substantial.
How much would that be out of your portfolio?
Nearly 10,000 apartments we have in this 65 lakhs and below. And to be fair, I think the government has been very right in classifying it 65 lakhs and below as the affordable or the budget homes. And other than Mumbai and Delhi, I think for rest of the city, I think it's a very, very good figure that the government has been very fair in fixing the figure.
So you're saying as a business strategy, it's not that you are going to look at that segment anymore. You've already been looking at that
We are
segment.
already looking at that. In fact, a number of our projects are even in the range of 30 to 50 lakhs. And 65 lakhs was considered, I would say earlier, a mid-segment, 65 to 100 lakhs. Today, I think the definition of affordable homes, there was no definition as such. Today, the government has come out with a definition, which is positive.
All right. So if Mr. Razak, if I were to come to you, look at your luxury portfolio and tell me, going forward, what is it that you would like to do more for Bangalore City? What kind of homes would you like to give Bangalore City?
See, I have always been advocating that the volumes will come from the mid-segment. And they will continue because housing in our context, in the Indian context, not even in Bangalore context, there is a need, and the need will continue to be there. It only depends on how affordable it is to buy a home. So we've been concentrating on that mid segment, and that's how we've been able to get those volumes. Like if you look at my operational note that we released just 2 days ago, the quarter gone by, we've done 1400 crores of sales, which just tells you. Now that it will not come only from the luxury segment, and you have to have, see, luxury is there, but that's a niche market. It's a small market. There's a different target.
It has the biggest hoardings though. I guess that needs selling. Affordable homes and budget homes don't need selling.
Exactly, but then you see, one more thing is, Bangalore's affordable homes looks like luxury homes.
Yeah.
So that,
Okay, now I will take that with a pinch of salt, if not a bag full of salt.
The pricing of the luxury
Yeah.
flats in Bangalore is at a mediocre level in some other cities. And I think every one of us has a threshold of how much luxury can we sell.
But 4.2 crores, Mr. Virvani, is luxury in any city of India.
But even if you look at Delhi, in a lot of places, 4.2 crores are in Bombay. To sell that kind of flat, people need to just buy. I mean, there is the capacity or number.
So what you're getting for luxury in Bangalore might be higher than what? Okay, but let's come back a little bit to Mr. Sharma. What are the corridors that you see? Is it so? You keep talking about inflation and how difficult it's the cost of land, how difficult it is to keep costs under control. So how long do you think that you'll be able to give a product under 65 lakh rupees, and how far do you have to go out from Bangalore city to give that?
Let's understand our math clearly. See, why Bangalore has been growing? Because it has been generating the highest quantum of these white collar jobs, and there has been an increase in the double income. Today 65 lakhs rupees is the right spot where Bangalore is. Probably incidentally, when Reserve Bank of India decided this limit, he did not have in mind Bangalore, but in our view that is the right sweet spot where most of us.
Hyderabad got even more lucky.
But Hyderabad doesn't have that kind of a demand. There is still an uncertain environment. This is the place where we have been absorbing highest quantum of office space, highest quantum of white collar jobs, and today the demand has been end user driven, speculation has been the least, and the availability of the land and the development of the residential space has been to support the commercial space or vice versa.
So give us some growth corridors. I mean, where do you think what are the future growth corridors for mid-segment homes and budget homes?
If you really look at last 15 years, we had grown towards this south and the southeast side of Bangalore. With the airport coming up in the north now, you find lots of development happening, and Bellary Road is becoming kind of a new MG road for all of us, sort of a thing. So it becomes another growth corridor. Thanks to electronic city now, being there in the business for last 20-25 years, you find that segment, that area also from Banarghatta Road and Kanakpura Road to moving towards the electronic city as well. So little bit on the western side, if you leave aside, most of the all other areas in Bangalore has got great growth potentiality, and it can go up to 35 kilometers from the city center, from where we are having this.
You're confident 35 kilometers has good connectivity, Mr. Virvani?
Smaller cities around Bangalore, so everywhere the Kanakpura market is strong.
I think most directions of Bangalore, the roads are good for up to 25 to 35
Yes.
kilometers, be it the Devanhalli road, be it the Old Madras road, Hosur road, Whitefield road, it's all, even the Tumkur road, with quite a few highways coming up and have come up. The approach is pretty good now.
Okay, so now final question which everybody wants to know, will Bangalore continue to move in the range of in terms of pricing? So let's first take budget and then I will take a consensus on luxury. In budget, and we are talking about 50 to about 75 lakh homes, budget changes between a middle income or an upper middle income family, will prices have been growing at the rate of about 10 to 12% in the past. Ashish, do you think that's the rate they'll continue to grow in the future as well?
I think for the major part you would see a sustainable, reasonable, realistic growth of 10 to 15%. You may see certain pockets where you may see a heightened economic activity, certain infrastructure push, which you may see maybe something higher than the average, which may be closer to 20%. But otherwise, I think it'll stay around the 10 to 15%.
What about luxury, Mr. Virvani? Where do you think the luxury market will go, and how will
The luxury market is quite strange. It's more depend on the quality of development you do. So, people in that size of money who are willing to buy are actually today, I think in Bangalore, because among most developers, the quality standard is quite high, and people's expectations are quite high in terms of quality product, and they're willing to pay a price if the location is good, is random. But again, like I mentioned earlier, luckily most of us have controlled even the price rise on the luxury segment in a very slow and gradual manner. So we would rather sell 200 apartments than sell 20 apartments and jack up the price to a very high level, which becomes unreachable, which happens in a lot of other cities.
Mr. Razak, is there a conscious strategy for luxury?
It has to be seen, whether it's luxury, whether it's mid-income or whatever, if you adopt this cost plus strategy, and see that plus could be anything, it could be what you want for your product, and ultimately it's the ticket size that matters. Like you mentioned, the hoardings 4 crores and 5 crores. Now why do you have the hoardings for 4 crores and 5 crores? That tells you a story that 4 crores and 5 crore homes need to be publicized, they need to be popularized, and there's not too many buyers in that range. Right. Having said that, in the last month, like Mr. Sharma mentioned, from June onwards, they suddenly is a spurt in the activity in the buying of these high-end homes also.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting to know. So the buyers coming back to the luxury market?
Coming back, and that is a good trend because any company will have all types of products, and this product was slow. But now when the buyers coming there, it gives us that much more confidence that look, now once this stock gets cleared, you can already start looking at
new projects. All right, we're going to take a very quick short break, but on the other side, Bangalore's office market has been the most robust across India or pan-India over the last 2 years, in fact defying trend of slowdown. We'll come back and look at the office market space. What is it that continues to attract corporates to Bangalore's real estate? Is it the quality of space which is offered? And going forward, how much more traction will you see in the office space market? Because after all, where jobs are created, homes have to be created, and the residential market is equally robust there. We'll be back to look at Bangalore's realty market in a while. Stay with us. Welcome back to our property discussion on Bangalore's real estate market. We've already covered residential, and well, we haven't got huge insights other than what we already had, saying that Bangalore's residential market continues to remain robust. June has seen a big uptick in the market, especially in the luxury segment also, which we believe is always the worst hit when a slowdown happens. So let's now move on to the office space market. Again, as we've said before and say again, where there is office space absorption, there will be robustness in the residential market as well. Office space figures, if you look at the first quarter of 2014, absorption of office space in Bangalore's market went up by 100% compared to 2013. Those figures are absolutely astounding. How long will that continue, and will grade A office space continue to be supplied in enough quantity in Bangalore's real estate market is now the big question to be posed to our panelists here. Jitu Virmani, you start with the office space market and tell me what's been going on. Why has Bangalore managed to defy the trend that we saw pan-India?
Okay, I think it's if you go back to starting of the software boom in Bangalore started from Bangalore, and I think typically the availability of the quality engineers in Bangalore is much higher. So though even they come from all parts of India, so if I lived in Patna and I got a job in Bangalore, I'd love to come to Bangalore because I already have a lot of friends here, and the attrition rate over here to move around between companies is quite high because you have much more companies here than any other city.
You don't have to leave the city to jump companies, isn't that?
So you have to be here. The opportunity is plenty.
It's true.
So most of the people have, and they are like Sharma, you offered the white collar jobs over here are more stable. The number of engineers here are quite high. So that's why there's a growth in the housing market also. And companies find it very easy to expand in Bangalore and for their new businesses and get good people.
So what about rentals? We've seen A's absorption, but are you happy with the increase in the rental yields that you've seen?
Obviously not. Well, obviously you want more. But the point is that, you see, one good thing about Bangalore has been the software market is related to timely completion, handover, occupancy, power, water, which I think to some extent is quite efficient in Bangalore, so you can time it. If I were to go and build a building in some other cities, I would be wary of getting my building product ready and then face penalties from these companies. So actually that has made a lot of these companies come back to Bangalore, where developers can promise schedule and stick to their schedules and deliver buildings on time. So that also had played a big role, because there's one time there was a big transition to Chennai.
Let's focus a little bit more, Mr. Razak, on the rental yields that you've been getting. I mean, when do you think the robustness there will also come in?
It has started. The reason is apart from what Jitu said about the availability of engineers and others, one great advantage Bangalore has is its cosmopolitan nature and the climate, the weather. You can't get Bangalore weather for anything anywhere else in the country.
For love or money.
Plus
I'm
point.
absolutely jealous. Look at the weather here and what I've left
And then
behind in
coming to
Delhi.
rentals,
That's right.
I believe now, you see, again, this is another attraction for Bangalore. Somehow or the other, we seem to be working very hard to give the software companies the higher profits, because we are breaking our back, building and giving them at lower rentals. But what is happening is, again, we are not losing our competitive edge, because moment the rentals are affordable, obviously the growth comes into Bangalore. And okay, fine, of late, because the supply is drying out, there is a pressure on the
There is
rental,
a
and
pressure.
the rentals are going up, and which is good for us. But it's not gone up so high that it becomes unaffordable again. It works for both. See, and the great part is that with the job creation that is happening with the consumption, like Jitu rightly said, it's 10, 11 million square feet per year, per annum, which is the absorption. That means that many jobs are getting created. That means 100,000 plus jobs get created year on year.
So you think that there will be a time where probably the pricing increase will make it an expensive market, or you think that's far away?
No, I think it is quite far away, because as my friend said here, Bangalore rentals are very, very affordable. In fact, too affordable to the buyer. It's not very good for the person or the company developing the space. And with rupee having depreciated in the last year, for the I would say the companies abroad, substantially American companies who are coming, it is great value to outsource or do their software development in India, and as a Bangalore scores compared to any other city in the country.
Okay.
And according to a recent LinkedIn survey, Bangalore is the #1 city in the world where the maximum number of tech people are moving, new tech people are moving to the city year after year. And of the 10 cities, you will be happy and surprised to know 5 cities are from India in the world.
That feels good. What about infrastructure? We'll come back to that
See,
a
most
little
of
bit
the
later,
infrastructure,
but
I
I
think-
think we should talk
I
about
have one
REITs.
more point, Manisha. Now there's another trend from these companies, these MNCs. Now apart from leasing now, it's a recent trend which I have seen in the last 4 to 6 months is they are now opting to buy instead of
Really?
leasing out. Yes, in fact we've done some 3-4 large ticket
And what's the math
deals.
there? I would think is,
In fact, the math works very well
the
for them.
gestation period would be very long
No,
on
I think
recovery.
it is also the confidence the companies have
Apart from the
in the city,
confidence,
in the city also, in the
They're
city.
basically in the country, they've been long, they're comfortable, and the accounting system in the US has changed. You see, rent has to be now capitalized.
Yeah.
So earlier they had this system of, its expenditure and revenue. So now they think that might as well in the long term they buy and hold it. So, you need to be as a developer flexible. Of course, some of us love renting, some of us love selling, but
And
you
then
need
they
to have a
get
combination.
cheaper money. See, if they borrow overseas, the MNCs.
That's
their
an
borrowing
interesting
cost is
point.
some
They can borrow and
2-3%. And if you look at the rent, yield on rent and all that, actually they have a huge saving. So, but then it all starts from the confidence. That's
I think-
Ashish, Puravanka, would you agree?
I think we're going from a rental advantage to a logistical advantage. So, I mean, first the companies got in here obviously because of the rental advantage, and once they set up shop here, then it's always easier to expand within the same city. You have the company has its infrastructure there, so then it becomes a logistical advantage to stay put here and expand within the city. Maybe new companies that are looking at India as a destination, Bangalore and Hyderabad and Pune and Gurgaon may compete. But I think companies that are already established here within each cities, because of the logistical advantage, would continue to expand for the most part.
Okay. One more question, and of course, REITs. Excited about it? the pass-through benefit
I'm one
which
of
has
those guys,
come.
I'm always excited, but
Can we see the first REITs from Embassy and
course.
Blackstone? I think that's a big question. Everyone's speculating it will happen, but what do you
REIT
think?
is something which, we've been as a company
Will we see
attempting
the first REIT
since
from Embassy and Blackstone? It's a very
2000.
pointed question.
So,
I
Of course,
want
you would love to do the
news
first REIT in
item.
terms of, in terms of value and everything, you would benefit out of being the first REIT. So our aim would be to do that, but from 2007 as a company, we've been looking at a REIT, whether it was in Singapore and, hoping that some regulation comes in India. And about 2 years back, we decided that India would be the right place to actually do the REIT, then rather go to Singapore. And, there's enough money within the market, there's no exchange risk. The only benefit you get in Singapore is arbitration of borrowing, but this would be a much safer growth, safer market to be here. And looks like, the government is moving quite fast at this
At this pace. So maybe by mid 2015, we are all hoping that we will have a
Actually, it is long overdue, from
Yeah.
the first draft rules was
best part
announced
about
in
this is this government
2007.
is committed towards it. See, otherwise it won't come in a budget speech of a finance minister, and he said for infrastructure and for office that they want this REIT structure. That means there's a will. Now, once there's a will, then okay, if there are certain deficiencies that need to get corrected, we need to again talk to them and say, listen, your intent is to do this, but you need to do this for it to be a reality. And let somebody be the leader.
But what are the kind of yields which will come in? I mean, even now, if I'm looking at with the tax pass-through, the notes that I'm reading from some of the so-called people, experts, Macquarie, etc., they say that the rental yields, the REIT yields will still not be more than 9 to 10%. Is that? And
but
they
going
said
forward,
good enough.
look at the growth
Even
plan,
less.
the growth on it. One is 9-10% to start off with, but there is escalation which kicks off. There are locations change. A lot of us have locations where, a tenant is paying rent and there's another tenant paying literally 30, 40, 50%, sometimes even 80% more rent in the span of 5-6 years, a new tenant. So there's a lot of growth which will play an important role in that kind of thing. We personally have locations.
You're confident REITs will work as a product in India?
Undoubtedly. It will,
And
If somebody like you wants to invest,
Yeah.
it's a hedge against inflation. You can't get a piece of action of real estate growth in India in a small,
it'll come to me much later. It'll first go to institutional buyers. On that note, we're going to take a quick short break. There's just so much to discuss. We could probably keep this conversation on for another hour, but we still have to look at land and infrastructure in Bangalore's real estate market. On our way back, we're looking at the realty debate on Bangalore. Welcome back. Concluding segment of Bangalore's real estate market discussion, and I think one area of concern with Bangalore is the infrastructure of Bangalore, the traffic on the roads, the water issues, all of that. So you can have great and robust real estate, but you also have to provide citizens a great living. How is that going to be feasible and possible, and what can developers do about it is going to be my next area of approach. So let me start with you, Mr. Sharma. This is a big concern, isn't it? Water is a concern, the traffic is a concern, the metro development is happening, but it's slower than what is expected, the ring roads, all of that much slower than what this city needs.
There is no two opinion that yes, infrastructure could have been much better. But at the same time, what you must appreciate is, if you compare apple to apple, in other cities also you will find maybe the similar problems or maybe more problems. But because Bangalore is relatively a newer city, it's a tech capital of the India or of the world kind of a thing, and some of the business leaders also, they are able to put up their grievance before the higher ups in a manner where it comes to the TV or to the media as such that we have more problems.
You think we highlight it more than it needs to
we
be?
highlight why you.
I must say that actually the Bangalore citizens are so aware, they highlight it the most.
Yes. Why are you people? What I am trying to say is this, to keep this government on its toes. But at the same time, if you really look at what used to be the traffic conditions, say 5 years, 10 years back, what it is now, it has definitely improved. If you look at the government's plans to improve the road conditions, improve the lighting conditions, to widen the road kind of a thing with the TDR, as far as this government is concerned, or if the previous governments were concerned, it is good of us that we kept the pressure on them, and which is helping us to get better roads, better flyovers, metro, and metro's reach is getting enhanced every year. And if you look at public transport has significantly improved in last few years than what it used to be, and all these things definitely augurs well. It
Okay.
does not take away that yes, infrastructure still could have been much better if you compare ourselves with a European city or with an American city.
But do you, Ashish, Puravankara, if you were to rate, I mean, I know that there's no direct experience of living in another city, but do you think that 3,500 crores plus, which has been set out by the Karnataka government for urban renewal and urban infrastructure, the pace at which it's happening is at least satisfactory for developers? It's not going to stall your business?
I don't think we'll get to a point where it stalls our business, but one thing I think that we have taken certain amount of responsibility on ourselves. So if you see most of our projects, we end up doing a lot of the neighborhood development ourselves. We end up setting up STPs within our site. So even if I do not have a connection through the municipality, we still can process all the wastage within our sites. We do a lot of rainwater harvesting. So I think we've taken on part of the responsibility. So I don't think it will come to a point of standstill, but yes, in terms of pushing the growth further at a higher pace, infrastructure implementation will help.
Where do you think that, you can have more public-private participation, Mr. Jaishankar? Look at a larger policy matter that, government, whether it's to build affordable houses or it's to build roads in the country, it will not be able to do it alone. So are there areas where you think PPP models will work for a city like Bangalore?
PPP models, as far as the developers are concerned, I think it is in the affordable housing and economically weaker section housing is something they could consider. As far as the roads and power sector is concerned, there is already an existing PPP model.
Which hasn't worked very well, but could be revived.
Which has worked, but it has suffered in the last few years due to other reasons of governmental policies. Otherwise, if the policies are right, PPP model is bound to work. And the nice thing about Bangalore is of late the government has announced two very major infrastructure projects. It is the Mumbai-Bangalore corridor on the Bangalore North, Tumkur Road, and the Chennai-Bangalore corridor on Hosur Road. Yes. These are very major efforts by the government. And another thing we need to remember is in India, by and large, it has been growth first and infrastructure later as a developing country.
You can't change that.
But in developed countries like in Western economies, it is infrastructure first and development later. But we also need to realize we are still a developing country. And the growth has been much faster than the reaction of the government.
Okay.
But I would say these are all growth pangs. Things are
So as of now, are there any big challenges, Mr. Razak, that you would, you would want the government to notice and you think that a speed up is required?
Yeah, see, Manisha, if all the money that the government says they are going to spend for infrastructure really goes on the infrastructure itself, right, and it goes into quality infrastructure, it will be a huge given. So unfortunately, it's
the implementation,
implementation is tardy, implementation is slow. Now they are in Bangalore, they are making a now special effort. They've got what is called tender sure. Now they are taking about 12 roads, prominent roads of Bangalore, doing it differently from what they normally do it, and going through a different tender process and giving it to private or other developers, not just the PWD rates. Now they are doing trying to make a qualitative development. Now plus the Bangalore metro itself. Now if the metro, today it's a toy train because it's just opened in one or two segments.
Hardly any
it
stops.
is of no use, it doesn't impact the lives of many. But if that phase 1 along with the phase 2 gets done within the next 3 to 5 years as they have planned and gets interlinked, and that happens, it will take a whole lot of two-wheelers. And moreover, you see, two-wheeler traffic in Bangalore is so dangerous, and it's, people sometimes lose their limbs, lose their lives just because traveling on those. So it brings a qualitative change in the lives of the people itself. So I believe these are steps that need to happen. There has to be some sort of a restlessness amongst the government, amongst the bureaucracy itself, that look, we need to do it and do it fast.
Are you seeing that?
I think things will change. I think this government has brought in some changes, but then the system is the same. The restlessness doesn't come in.
Okay.
So we have to be responsible to make them restless.
Well, I can say if anyone can do it, it's Bangalore. At least the citizens here are fairly conscious about a change. Just one final word before I wrap up. In terms of growth, what about land? I mean, you think because Bangalore is growing all around western, leaving the west part, land is not going to be an issue, Mr. Virwani, for your growth plans?
No, I think land is really not an issue. I mean, there's enough land available for
No, for
development.
Mumbai, it's the biggest problem.
Yeah,
MMR
but
is the
Bangalore
biggest
land is
problem.
available, and infrastructure also is growing. I mean, like every city in India needs a lot of development. So we are hoping that this new government, since they got majority power, they'll be able to help us. But also, if you look back from years, Bangalore developers 15, 20 years back onward, in their small way, have taken responsibility of developing certain roads, maintaining certain roads, and they have the ability to spend on the place, but which a lot of cities developers say, no, this is the government's job. But unlike that, in Bangalore, a lot of developers have built their own infrastructure without batting an eyelid, because they think it's convenient for them and it's to be built. So people are spending crores of rupees doing it. I mean, in our whole CREDA, you can see that people are spending crores of rupees in developing certain roads which help their access. So if Irfan, me, or Jai Shankar, or any of us are developing 100
At least
acre
a
property,
sector roads, as
so
we
we
say. I
feel
don't know the word that you
spending
use.
money on that road, amortizes over our project. So we do it without batting an eyelid and then just depending on the government. So that's one thing which is good about Bangalore.
Social responsibleness. Also, I think
Plus, an
without
average
hesitation
Bangalorean,
we can say we are.
You see, an average Bangalorean is one of the strange citizens, is willing to pay more to get a better quality of life, better quality of transport. That was the survey a few years back when they tested that Bangaloreans were willing to pay more
Because
taxes.
probably he's traveling abroad more and getting exposed to more global lifestyles. I think on that note, I'm going to conclude. Ashish Puravankara, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Razak, Jitu Virwani, and Mr. Jai Shankar, thank you very much for making the time. I couldn't have asked for a better panel. It is truly the dream panel out of Bangalore. So thanks for making the time. And well, I have been told that I'm a little biased towards the Bangalore's real estate market. I will concede that, every time I try and play the devil's advocate, I'm shot down with very good logic. So continue to believe that it is one of the markets which sets benchmarks in India's real estate, and I hope it will continue to do so. It's a good market for end users as well. I mean, you don't see crazy price appreciations. You do have modest price appreciations and great quality of residential homes and office spaces coming into supply. Thanks very much for joining
Just
me.
to have a last word.
Yes, of
I
course.
would like to say you are not biased. You've been right about Bangalore.
I like the truth. On that note, I'm going to conclude. Thank you very much for joining me.